The arrival of the COVID-19 virus in India in January 2020 set off an inevitable countdown to the day that this country of 1.3 billion would start taking drastic measures to limit the contagion. On 24th March 2020, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced what would effectively be the largest lockdown in the world.
संपूर्ण देश में संपूर्ण लॉकडाउन होने जा रहा है। अभी के हालात को देखते हुए देश में ये लॉकडाउन 21 दिन का होगा।
Given India's population size, this lockdown was important to control the spread of the virus and prevent our already understaffed health infrastructure from being overwhelmed. As a result, all work was brought to a grinding halt, and the country came to a standstill. India's informal sector, which employs over 81% of our workforce, has been the first to bear the brunt of the lockdown. Over the past few months, as the COVID-19 pandemic has intensified, global supply chains have been disrupted and entire businesses are collapsing. But in India, the one community that has been hit the hardest are migrant laborers. Over the next few weeks, I will be investigating what this impact looks like on the ground and trying to figure out what some of the solutions are. Migrant worker communities travel from their homes in distant villages and come to cities, often staying in slums and makeshift homes, where they can earn much more to support their families.
Exodus that hasn't been seen in India in decades. Thousands of migrant workers are on the move, most of them on foot.
The story of the migrant community's struggle shot into the public conscience when our cities experienced one of the largest mass migrations the world has ever seen. Thousands of migrant workers stranded in cities far away from their homes began walking back with all their belongings, creating a visual reminiscent of India's gory partition history. I'm meeting with one migrant worker who was a part of that exodus, attempting a journey of nearly 1,500 kilometers on foot from Goa to Madhya Pradesh before he was apprehended by the police forces. प्रदीप जी, गोवा से मध्य प्रदेश पैदल चलने की निर्णय आपने कैसे ली?
जी मैडम, हम इधर से भी मैडम आप कुछ नहीं मिल रहा था, तो इधर से हम सब आदमी बोला मैडम कि इधर से गाड़ी नहीं है, कुछ बसें नहीं है, ट्रेन नहीं है, तो हम बोला पैदल जा सकता है बोला।
आपको क्या लगा कि गोवा से मध्य प्रदेश जाने के लिए कितना टाइम लगेगा?
जी हमको लगता था मैडम 1 महीने लगता मैडम।
क्या आप अगली बार वापस चल के जाने की कोशिश करोगे?
अगली बार मैडम कोई सहायता मिलेगा तो जाएंगे, नहीं तो ऐसे जाना पड़ेगा मैडम।
For many, escaping to the big city represents unprecedented opportunity. And with that now taken away, heading back home to safety seems to be the only way out for these migrants. This journey can be incredibly dangerous, with many migrants even losing their lives. I'm heading to meet these communities to try and understand what their struggles are that would prompt them to attempt a journey like this back home. A large proportion of the roughly 450 million migrant workers in India are employed in the construction sector on a daily wage and without a contract. Today, as all work at these sites comes to a grinding halt, this community is reeling from the impact of the virus. इस कोरोना वायरस की वजह से क्या आपके परिवार को कुछ नुकसान होगा?
अब नुकसान बोलेगा तो हम तो खाने पीने का तो पहला प्रॉब्लम यही है। मतलब सरकार बोलता है ये मिलेगा वो मिलेगा, बोला अभी तक तो कोई दिया नहीं है। ऐसे हम लोग के पास जितना पैसा था वो भी खत्म हो गया, लेकिन अभी आगे क्या करेगा क्या नहीं हम लोग को पता नहीं। अभी 15-20 दिन से हम लोग का तो बहुत नुकसान हुआ है।
आपका भी पूरा जो कंस्ट्रक्शन का काम है वो पूरी तरह से बंद हो गया है।
हाँ पूरा बंद है अभी।
It's crucial to remember that this community's financial fragility predates the virus outbreak, and an unexpected shock like COVID-19 can really set them back. Right now, we need to come together and ensure that we don't let this medical crisis snowball into a humanitarian crisis, and that we look after the needs of the migrant workers who work in often dangerous conditions, keeping our cities alive, ensuring that our lives can run as usual. We cannot let them become refugees in their own country. But far out at sea, COVID-19 has been especially catastrophic. The momentary shutdown of all activity has resulted in huge losses to the fisheries sector. Migrant workers make up the bulk of the manpower on board fishing vessels that venture out into the high seas. At the time of filming this segment, many fishers were marooned at sea with their boats anchored as they waited for the ban to be lifted. There's a huge bias against migrant communities, especially fishermen. How do you think the government should think about these migrant workers and protect them in these times?
Without the migrant laborers, we won't be able to run this business, 100%. Because others, whenever there's workers, they don't come for a work, we are not sending our boats out. So these migrant workers are important, especially in this particular business, in fishing business.
In these times, given that there's no profit coming in, are the boat owners still able to pay the wages to these migrant laborers?
That is a question mark. But anyhow, we have to pay them. There is no escape in that. Because we want these workers to come back again and work on our boat.
But is that happening right now? Are all boat owners paying their migrant laborers?
Yeah, we are paying them.
Okay.
And we have to pay them.
Yes.
Now finally in May 31st, they go home. Now the question is what? This is a problem. Whether in May, these people will able to go home.
To uncover the truth behind this, I'm heading to meet these fishing migrants at sea to hear their stories firsthand. आप क्या चाहते हो? सरकार आपको कैसे मदद कर सकती है?
यही कि 2-4 दिन में एक हफ्ता के लिए कम से कम ट्रेन चालू कर दे ताकि हम लोग घर पहुंच सकें।
आपको घर जाना है?
जी।
आपको यहाँ पे पगार मिल रहा है?
अभी तो क्लियर नहीं हुआ है, मालिक भी देगा कि नहीं डाउट है हम लोग, क्योंकि काम नहीं चल रहा है ना।
तो डर है। अच्छा, आपके माँ बाप से बात हुई है? क्या वो चाहते कि आप वापस चलो?
फोन से बात होता है, चाहते हैं कि हम लोग भी वापस आए घर।
अच्छा, आप कितने उम्र के हो?
19 साल।
19. Shankar is just one of hundreds of thousands of migrant workers that are currently stranded out in India's high seas. But unlike other migrants that are at shore, these communities literally have an entire ocean that is separating them from their families, essential supplies like food and other commodities in these difficult times. For these men, the ocean is their place of work, a dangerous place that they call home as it provides them with an income that nourishes their families. Right now, stranded far away from home, they can only find solace in each other.
नदी किनारे क्या मचारी मारा कहाँ से नुतरेला बन को नुतरेला ओडिशा से नुतरेला बन को नुतरेला.
All All through the year, these migrant fishermen are invisible, aliens to the rest of us. And today, in the midst of this pandemic, this only gets exacerbated. I mean, if you think about it, the rest of us are dealing with the uncertainty of the pandemic, and they are too, but they're also dealing with the uncertainty of not knowing when they can get back to shore and see their families again. To learn more about the bigger picture behind the migrant fishermen's struggle, I'm meeting with ex-Sea Shepherd captain and independent fisheries labor researcher, Siddharth Chakravarti. I think within the state right now, the fisheries is probably one of the hardest hit sectors. And given the contractless nature of the migrants' work, would you say that they're structurally more vulnerable at this point in time?
Almost 98% of the catch comes from mechanized boats, and that mechanized boats whole sector is manned and operated by migrant workers. And the moment the industry shut down, the migrant workers lost out on employment. And being ununionized, being from across the country, being in an unfamiliar place, being in exploitative labor relations as well with the boat owners, they have been hit pretty hard.
What kind of action-oriented responses does the state government need to have to these migrant workers?
So I think there's an overall demand from some of the national unions that there needs to be immediate financial relief and rations and everyday necessities that have to be put in place for the lockdown period. Yeah. Then there was a midterm demand because we've got the monsoon ban period coming up for the mechanized sector and also some of the motorized boats which fish in the EZ. And the idea is that, okay, if you're going to lose that season, what are the financial reliefs that need to be provided to tide over so that when we begin the season in August, we are again starting fresh and, having dealt with the situation. And then there's the long-term demand, which is what does this financial year, which has started in the midst of the lockdown, mean for the fisheries sector? So I think those are three timelines that we'd like the government to look at and start conversations now.
While we were filming this story, and aided by pressure from national fisheries unions, the Ministry of Home Affairs finally allowed the resumption of fishing in India's waters. With a disrupted supply chain and limited financial reserves, many boat owners are in a tough spot as they need to send boats out in this critical time before the monsoon ban on fishing. In the months ahead, the fisheries sector will need significant support from the government to completely re-energize itself. With food supply and distribution chains being interrupted and a general scarcity of supplies in the market, many vendors have significantly marked up their prices. This temporary surge in essential food prices has proven especially difficult for migrant workers at a time when most haven't received their income. आप मुझे बता सकते कि कोरोना वायरस के वजह से जो लॉकडाउन लागू किया है सरकार ने, आपको क्या तकलीफ हुई है?
इधर आलू 20 रुपए था, एक बैग आलू हो गया 80 रुपए। वो टमाटर 20 रुपए था, वो भी 60 रुपए हो गया। अब पास में पैसा भी नहीं है, क्या करेगा? ऐसे किसी तरह वो दूध पानी डाल के चावल नमक डाल के खाता हूँ, क्या पैसा नहीं।
Over the past few weeks, as I've been researching this story, I've come across so much data on the issue. Numbers that tell us about the impact of the coronavirus imposed lockdowns on this migrant worker community. But today, I want to move past seeing these resilient people as mere statistics and understand their needs at this point in time. It's important to understand the financial backdrop that most migrant workers operate in, to better address their needs in this COVID-19 spurred crisis. Their daily wages result in the absence of a financial safety net of savings, which makes a crisis like this particularly devastating. I'm meeting with a family of migrant workers who have been struggling to stay afloat ever since the virus outbreak. For 30 years, they've called Goa home, ever since they left their native village in search of work opportunity. क्या आपने कुछ पैसे बचा के रखे हुए हैं पहले से?
नहीं, 1 रुपया भी नहीं।
क्यों नहीं हो जाता है?
कैसा होएगा? ये परिवार सब है, बच्चे लोग संभालना मांगता है, बाद में इधर उधर दवा हॉस्पिटल में जाता है पैसा, किसको बुखार आया ये दिखाना मांगता है, पैसा किधर बचेगा?
और इन दिनों में तो पूरा काम बंद है, देश बंद है, तो आप घर कैसे चला रहे हो?
अभी नहीं, अभी बंद है ना, अभी 1 रुपया भी नहीं दिया हमको अभी तक। शेठ कोई पूछे भी नहीं क्या खाता है क्या पीता है, कुछ भी नहीं पूछा हमको।
For families like Shivaji's, their daily wages are their escape from sliding towards poverty. Today, these migrant workers are put in the tough spot of not being able to provide for their families for the first time ever. Shivaji's son is a budding cricketer who was selected for the under-19 state team and hopes to move on to being a professional cricketer from his current job as a food delivery boy for Zomato. आपका क्या ख्वाहिश है? क्या आप प्रोफेशनल क्रिकेटर बनना चाहते हो? इंडिया के लिए खेलना चाहते हो?
हाँ, मैं प्रोफेशनल क्रिकेट खेलना चाहता हूँ क्योंकि अच्छा लगता है मेरे को क्रिकेट खेलना पहले से ही।
बचपन से खेल रहे हो?
हाँ, बचपन से। मैं यहाँ पे गोवा में बहुत साल से लोकल खेल रहा था, तो मुझे एक कोच ने बोला था कि आप अच्छा फील्डिंग करते हो तो आप प्रोफेशनल इसमें जाइए।
आपको क्या विराट कोहली बनना है कि सचिन तेंदुलकर बनना है?
हम तो धोनी के फ़ैन हैं, मतलब उससे सीखते हैं मतलब कैसे जीना है।
आपके परिवार जो है महाराष्ट्र से है, पर अभी आप गोवा में रहते हो। यहाँ के जो बस्ती के लोग हैं वो क्या सोचते हैं और आपको कैसे ट्रीट करते हैं?
हाँ, मतलब ट्रीट तो सही नहीं करते हैं। कोई लोग रहते हैं जो अच्छे रहते हैं, मतलब कोई लोग सोचते नहीं मतलब कि हम 8 मंथ्स इधर जॉब करते हैं, बाद में 4 महीना हमारे महाराष्ट्र में रहते हैं, लेकिन लोग बहुत बुरा भला कहते हैं कि मतलब यहाँ पे बाहर से आते हो, नहीं आने का, ऐसा बोलते हैं।
If you look at the historical context of Goa, people have always seen migrant laborers as the other. They've had this bias towards them. Do you think that this bias is acting up in our response to their needs at this time?
What I see is that there is a Goan identity, an identity that draws on a semi-historical, independence movement, Portuguese colonization. And somehow the tourism lobbies and the real estate lobbies that have moved into Goa have kind of threatened this Goan identity. And I feel like sometimes the Goan identity, in its attempt to safeguard itself, looks at the most vulnerable person that it can play that out on.
So from what you're saying, it almost seems like there's been like this tribal mindset about, who to protect and who not to protect in these times. And that's terrifying.
It is. And I think Goa is one of those places where the migrant worker and the Goan are perfectly visible as having two different accesses from the state. And in spite of the fact that we've got like a central ministry directive saying, protect migrant workers, guarantee their rights, pay them money, I don't know if there's enough medical facilities or quarantining facilities that the Goans are actually going to provide if there was a community transmission in some of these tightly packed, poorly regulated, hygienically kind of constrained spaces that they work and operate out from. So it is a serious concern of what's going to happen to migrant workers should things get worse than they are currently.
These migrant laborers are particularly vulnerable politically, as the local state government often sees them as outsiders whose welfare is outside their jurisdiction. This is further compounded by the fact that many migrant laborers are undocumented. Being unregistered in various government databases makes receiving support harder.
मैं गांव का इलेक्शन कार्ड यहाँ पे तो क्या करने का ऐसा इंसान जिसके मोदी सरकार बोलता है जिसके पास राशन कार्ड रहेगा, हाँ इलेक्शन कार्ड रहेगा, आधार कार्ड रहेगा, उसको राशन मिलेगा, बाकी लोग क्या करेगा, बाकी लोग कैसे जिएगा? ये गलत है ना? राशन देना है तो सबको दो ना।
On May 14th, the Modi government announced a one nation, one ration card system to subsidize food grain. As the digital infrastructure for this continues to be built out, the migrant community's immediate needs must be prioritized. On any given day, this place would be completely bustling with activity, with lots of buses going from state to state. But right now, with the borders being shut, it's completely desolate. Migrants across the country want to head back home, but with transport systems interrupted, this remains a distant reality.
उनको अगर टेस्ट लेना ही है, घर घर रूम रूम में जाकर के वो टेस्ट ले, एक एक इंसान को टेस्ट ले। जिनको अगर बीमारी है वायरस, उनको रेस्ट करो, अस्पताल में भर्ती करो, और जिनको नहीं है तो उनको डायरेक्ट अपने जगह में पहुंचाओ।
As the rest of India grapples with this crisis from the safety of their homes, many migrant workers are forced to share cramped spaces with each other. These slums that migrants live in have represented a significant public health challenge for decades now. And today, these living conditions only worsen the problem.
मेरा कहना है सरकार, हम लोग जितना पब्लिक है इधर, हम लोग गांव भेज दो किसी तरह से, आपस में सबको हम लोग गांव जाएंगे, अपना अपने घर में सेपरेट रहेंगे। सेपरेट इसको बोलता है कि अपने अपने घर पे रहो, इसको सेपरेट नहीं बोलता कि सब एक जगह छुट्टी मार के रहो, गपशप करो, खाना पीना मत खाओ, कमजोर हो जाओ, मर जाओ। ऐसा सेपरेट
अंग्रेजी में बोलते हैं सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग। सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग तो पॉसिबल ही नहीं है यहाँ पे।
कैसे पॉसिबल है? वो लोग तो बोल देता है कि दूरी रहो, 1 मीटर दूर रहो। किधर रहेंगे? 5 लोग एक रूम में, 5 लोग रहता है। हम लोग गरीब आदमी है, छोटा सा रूम है, छोटा सा 5,000 4,000 लेता है, छोटा सा रूम है, वो लोग 4-5 लोग रहते हैं। तो आपस में अगर छोटा रूम है, आपस में रहेंगे तो दूरी कैसा होगा? 5 तो ही गया। और एक ऐसा ही मेरा एक ही रूम नहीं है, बहुत रूम ऐसा है, किसी में 5 लोग 6 लोग 7 लोग रुकता है। तो वो आपस में सरकार जो है ना, ये बेरामी को दूर नहीं करा और बेरामी को पास लेके आ रहा है।
इस बस्ती में कितने लोग रहते हैं जी?
इस बस्ती में हम लोग 600-700 ऐसा
600।
गाँव से हम लोग गाँव से जो आए ना कमाने के लिए, 600-700।
अच्छा। When you live in a chawl with over 50 men all together in these cramped spaces, social distancing is not a possibility, it's a privilege. And right here, we have so many people that share a space. And with that, you have the health risk only increasing exponentially. If even one person has the virus, it will spread like wildfire in these circumstances. But it's not just that these communities are vulnerable from a health perspective, but also that they are actively discriminated against. In the last few months, multiple incidents of police brutality towards migrants have emerged, from large-scale lathi charging to spraying them with disinfectant.
पीछे घूम जा, आंखें बंद कर लो, जोर से पीछे घूम जा, आंखें बंद कर लो। इसका पूरा असर मुंह से होता है, आंखें बंद कर लो, पीछे घूम जाओ।
हम लोग काम पे रुका था, अब 2-4 आदमी का काम मिला, तो फिर इस टाइम पुलिस आया, इसलिए हम लोग इधर खड़ा था, पुलिस आके लाठीचार्ज करता है। हम तो इधर से भागता है, क्या करने का, हमारा तो इधर का आदमी नहीं है ना, मरेगा तो बीमार पड़ेगा ना, तो इधर कौन देखेगा, इसके लिए तो हम लोग भागता है।
You know, the thing about police brutality that strikes me most is that even its acceptance and its understanding is completely different depending on what community you're from. And I think the variable is privilege. Because every single day when I head back home, I'm not worried or I'm not thinking about the fact that stepping out to get my groceries might result in me being lathi charged by the police forces. But almost every single one of the migrant workers that I've interviewed so far are constantly thinking about this. And that's just one reflection of the many ways in which our most marginalized are most impacted right now. To understand more about how the migrant workers of India are more vulnerable from a health perspective, I'm meeting with Harvard Medical School doctor and mental health researcher Dr. Vikram Patel. In your opinion, are migrant worker communities more vulnerable to both contracting and being susceptible to COVID-19?
Migrant workers already belonged to the poor of the poor, amongst the poorest in India, and therefore they already carried a disproportionate burden of poverty-related diseases, like for example TB. And we already know that one of the major reasons why COVID-19 kills is because it really affects people with existing severe medical problems much worse. And migrant workers, because they're poor and because they carry this very heavy burden of chronic diseases, are likely to suffer poorer outcomes of COVID infection than people who are better off.
Dr. Vikram, in terms of designing public healthcare responses specifically for this vulnerable migrant worker community, how do we ensure that we are designing for our context in India and not just borrowing from existing Western models and structures?
In some ways, I kind of imagine the lockdown in India is like locking down the whole of Europe overnight, regardless of the fact that there are about 40 countries in Europe. We are a collection of countries. And indeed, even districts are very unlike one another. I do believe that the government's current strategy of a staggered lift based on the local epidemiology of the virus is exactly the right way to go. A one-size-fits-all approach cannot work in a country of such enormous diversity as India.
There's a lot of pressures at play currently that are affecting the migrant worker community. What does this mean from a mental health and well-being standpoint?
Obviously, there's enormous stress because of uncertainty. When will I eat? When will I eat not just today, but when will I eat tomorrow? And when will this end and when will I start earning again? And I'm, of course, not only concerned about myself, but also all the people who depend on me.
To deal with the mental health consequences of being stranded away from home and with a whole deal of uncertainty, the governments of various states are currently providing counseling and mental health support to migrant workers stranded in government facilities.
तो जहाँ पे आप हो वहाँ पे खुश रहने की कोशिश करो, अपने आप को स्ट्रॉन्ग रखो, आपको फैमिली से अपने बात करनी है, इवन अगर आपको फ़ोन्स नहीं यूज़ करने मिल रहे या फिर बैलेंस नहीं है तो ऑफिशियल्स के पास पूरी छूट है कि आपको वो ऑफिशियल यहाँ पे जो फ़ोन्स है वो यूज़ करने आपको दे सकते हैं.
It's important that we scale up mental health service access to these migrants across the region. In late March, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced a $22.6 billion economic stimulus, which includes direct cash transfers and subsidies.
So the package that we come up with will benefit those migrant workers, those poor, those urban and rural poor, and the women. And this Prime Minister Garib Kalyan scheme that we want to come out with is expected to meet a total of 1,70,000 crores. We do not want anyone to remain hungry.
But how easy is it for those most in need to access these schemes? How many people know the specifics of government initiatives and how to benefit from them? India's impressive mobile network penetration offers a potentially game-changing mode of communication for the government to reach out to its citizens. Across India, even the poorest communities often have access to a smartphone. And this device acts as their main conduit of information. But in these times of the crisis, is this good enough? Is news and information delivered through the content they consume doing the job? At the time of filming, I even met many migrant workers who were watching news that was entirely fake.
नमस्कार, आप देख रहे हैं विशेष. मैं हूं श्वेता. रहेंगे भारत में, खाएंगे भारत का और गाएंगे पाकिस्तान का.
खबरों के मुताबिक चीन के इस लैब में मौजूद 1500 से ज्यादा वो जानलेवा वायरस हैं जिन पर बाकायदा रिसर्च चल रहा है. अब जरा अंदाजा लगाइए, अगर कोरोना के वायरस की तरह बाकी वायरस भी लैब से बाहर निकल आए तो क्या होगा.
और दोस्तों, अभी भी जानकारी मिली कि 7 दिनों के लिए 45 से 65 ट्रेनें चलाई जाएंगी. जो लोग रास्ते में फंसे हैं उनको उनके घर पहुंचाया जाएगा. तो दोस्तों, बहुत बड़ी खबर है. हम आपको बताएंगे ट्रेन का नाम, ट्रेन का नंबर, सारी डिटेल्स आपको देने वाला.
आपको खबरें और न्यूज़ किस जगह से मिलती है?
हमको खबरें और न्यूज़ नेट से मिलती है और जियो जो माई जियो ऐप है उससे मिलता है. उसका बाद में जियो टीवी है उससे मिलता है. आज तक चैनल से देखते हैं. उसका बाद ABP न्यूज़ है उसमें देखते हैं. हम देख के जो बोलता है उसी को तो मानना ही पड़ता है.
This disinformation poses several risks to the containment of the virus and the well-being of these communities. सरकार ने जो स्कीम शुरू की है लोगों को मदद करने के लिए, जैसे कि मुआवजा देना, आप इसके बारे में कितना जानते हो, कितनी जानकारी है?
अभी जानकारी तो वही नेट पे देखने का है। इन बाद में तो मोदी जी बोल दिए हाँ पैसा मिलेगा, आपको राशन मिलेगा, लेकिन अभी जब मिले तो मालूम पड़े कि हाँ मोदी जी ने दिलाया। अपना सब मैच वाला पैसा दिया है, सचिन तेंदुलकर, कपिल शर्मा, इन सब पैसे दिए, लेकिन वो मोदी पैसा कर रहा है क्या है वो हमको समझ में नहीं आता है।
वो पब्लिक पे आता नहीं है, क्या करता है, एक दो को दिया, कैमरा कर दिया, उसमें लिखा दिया कि 1000 आदमी को दिया, पब्लिक तक पहुंचता नहीं है। हम लोग का तकलीफ हम लोग जानते हैं।
I think the biggest problem is not just that most people are accessing information that is highly sensational and full of rhetoric, but also that most people don't have access to credible, evidence-based information on what this virus means, how to stay safe, and most importantly, how to get to the benefits that the government has for these communities. We have to begin leveraging popular platforms that the majority of India relies on to provide key information on processes to benefit from financial schemes. And there's no better time than now. A deeply problematic fallout of this virus and the resulting lockdowns is the impact on women. In this community, women form the backbone of their families and have to usually both earn their daily wages while also being completely in charge of looking after their homes. क्या कोरोना वायरस के कारण औरतों को ज़्यादा तकलीफ हो रही है आपके ख्याल में?
हाँ मैम, जो भी हम लोग अभी खाने पीने का तो प्रॉब्लम होती है। पहले बच्चे लोग मांगते हैं खाना, फिर आदमी मांगते हैं। आदमी भी ये नहीं सोचते हम खाएंगे, हमारे बीवी बच्चे क्या खाएंगे, सोच समझ के हम लोग ये कर लेते, गुजारा कर रहे हैं।
तो आप सबसे कम खाते हो?
जी मैम।
जब मोदी जी ने बताया कि ताली बजाना है और दिया जलाना है, तो आपको कैसे पता चला और आपने क्या किया?
मतलब मैम मैंने मेरे पति के मोबाइल में नेट है मैम, उस नेट में मैंने देखा मोदी ने 5 तारीख को बोले थे 9:09 में आप दिवाली जैसे दिया लगाओगे तो जो भी कुछ है आप लोग को अच्छा लगने लगेगा। सब देशों को मैं आपको ये करता हूँ। तो हम लोग ने यहाँ पे जितने भी अड़ोसी पड़ोसी जितने भी हमारे गली में हैं, हमने सब ने दिया भी लगाया है और ताली बजाए, प्लेट लेके आवाज़ भी किए।
Unemployment and frustration for migrant worker men, coupled with movement restrictions, has resulted in the worsening of an existing societal issue: domestic violence. कोरोना वायरस की वजह से बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं जो सबको दिखती है, जैसे कि पानी की कमी, राशन की कमी, पैसों की कमी। पर आपके ख्याल में ऐसी भी प्रॉब्लम्स है जो लोगों को दिखती नहीं है परिवारों में?
जी मैम, मेरा कहना ये है अभी आदमी लोग को काम नहीं है और खाने पीने के लिए भी नहीं है और अपने पॉकेट में भी पैसे नहीं है। उस गुस्से से आदमी लोग ये टेंशन लेके हम लोग को ऊपर भी चिल्ला रहे हैं, हाथ भी उठा रहे हैं। मैं अकेले का सवाल नहीं है, ये सारी औरत लोग का सवाल है।
It's important in these times to actively design financial schemes that empower migrant women to receive the money directly and make the right decisions for their family. अगर सरकार ने आपको पैसे दिए आपके परिवार को, तो आपको क्या लगता है कि आपके आदमी को देना चाहिए कि आपको देना चाहिए?
आदमी को देने से मैम वो क्या करते हैं, जैसे अभी मिला तो वो थोड़ा देर में सोचते घर लेके जाऊं क्या दारू पी लूं, घर लेके जाऊं क्या मैं कुछ बीड़ी पी लूं, चाहे सिगरेट पी लूं। इससे अच्छा मैम औरत को जो भी पैसे मिलेंगे उसमें हम लोग जो भी हमारे पास गुजारा होएगा हम लोग लेके आके बच्चे को खिला भी सकते हैं, आदमी को भी खिला सकते हैं, हम भी खा सकते हैं। कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो तो पड़ोसी को भी हम लोग खिला भी सकते हैं, हेल्प भी कर सकते हैं।
Amidst these difficult times, one family is celebrating a new addition to their home. A baby born while the whole city is in lockdown. आप अपने बच्चे के लिए क्या चाहते हो, क्या ख्वाहिश है?
पहले ख्वाहिश थी बच्चे का गोवा में पढ़ाना है, ये लड़की का भी, लड़का को भी पढ़ाना है गोवा में। अच्छा पढ़ाई करा के बाद में कुछ दिखता है क्या कर सकता है बच्चे लोग, थोड़ा बचा के रखेगा तो तभी तो ख्वाहिश पूरा करेगा। अभी कोरोना की वजह से बंद सब है तो ख्वाहिश अंदर ही रहेगा ऐसा।
With her husband out of work, Poonam is struggling to feed her infant baby in the midst of the pandemic. Getting 3 meals on the table in a day is a struggle for most migrant workers at the best of times. Right now, due to COVID-19, their existing vulnerabilities are only magnified. Civil society and government officials have swung into action together to respond to the migrant community's most pressing needs. These people who have day jobs through the year are now putting themselves on the front lines by acting as a rapid response network. I'm heading to see a relief kitchen that has been feeding thousands of migrant workers over the last few weeks in action. What are we cooking right here?
So we're cooking Thai khichdi, all khichdi. In this there is onions, there's carrots, there's doodhi, there's tomatoes.
And how many people will this entire vat of food feed?
This approximately would be around 236 people to be.
Around 236, that's a pretty accurate number. What's amazing about this is that it's super nutritious and also really accessible to all of the communities that you're delivering this to. I mean, honestly, in the time of coronavirus, people are very concerned about the health implications of contracting this, but hunger kills as well. In other parts of the state, multiple teams of volunteers have been helping the government with their efforts and stepping in where the government is understaffed.
So the Goa Humanitarian Helpline is a distress helpline that was started as soon as the lockdown began. We get calls from people who are in need. We have an inbound team that notes down details of the calls. And then we have an outbound team who attaches like a local champion or a volunteer to each caller to ensure that somebody's on the case.
Once the numbers and the need are ascertained, volunteers spread across the state begin preparing the ration bags containing essential supplies. These are then distributed at various collection points, which are home to large concentrations of migrant workers. A lot of the migrant workers who are currently waiting to access their rations had actually called into the humanitarian helpline requesting help. And it's so amazing to see the volunteers hard at work, working around the clock to get them the food that they need.
A lot of these people who are negatively impacted are actually super hardworking, right? It's not for any fault of theirs that they are in this vulnerable situation. This is like the Third World War. It's just not as violent and chaotic, but this is a time where we all have to come together and work.
So given that we have so many different volunteers working with over 10 to 15 organizations within the state itself, how do you ensure that there's no redundancy in the system, and how do you bring everyone together to make sure that you're reaching out to as many people as you possibly can?
Yeah, it's a lot of phone calls and trying to connect with the head of all of the various organizations and the volunteer groups and essentially create a centralized database to collect the actions that each individual group is taking and identifying the groups that they are servicing, whether with cooked food or food supplies, and then also keeping track of the distribution days.
It's honestly amazing. And very often we hear people talking about how the state needs to intervene and step in. But what would you say about the role of civil society in a time like this?
Yeah, I mean, here's the reality. For me, democracy is not just about rights, it's about responsibilities. to have a democracy, we have a responsibility to work with our officials.
Mhm.
The fact is, you're expecting a few elected members from a society to literally take care of thousands and thousands of people.
Mhm.
It's a huge task.
This migrant crisis might be relevant right now during an event like a nationwide lockdown. But in zooming out, it exposes how these communities need to be supported and empowered to look after their needs in a more sustained manner. As India opens up its economy slowly, the effects of this lockdown period will continue to be felt by migrant communities most in the months ahead. Given the scale of the problem, we need to amplify impactful solutions that cut across government, industry, and civil society to ensure that we leave no one behind. I've just spent my day at the migrant camp here, which is home to hundreds of migrant workers from different states like Bihar, Jharkhand, Orissa, West Bengal, and Maharashtra, amongst others. And my biggest takeaway is that we really need to value the skills and contribution that this community has. They really are the backbone of the Indian economy in so many ways. And when we have that value for their work and for who they are, that empathy will naturally flow into our policy-making spaces. While filming this story, I collaborated with a group of public policy researchers focused on social welfare and grassroots policy in India, known as the Stranded Workers Action Network. Together over Zoom calls and Google Docs, we came up with a list of key recommendations for the state and industry to look after migrant worker needs in the months ahead. After 51 days of lockdown, the Indian government announced measures to support millions in economic distress. The focus now must be on effective implementation to ensure that their most urgent needs, like food and shelter, are met. A few weeks after I first met her, I went back to meet Rupali. As I enter her house, she tells me her family is being evicted as they couldn't pay their rent. They load up all their belongings to transport to another location as they figure out where to head next. Within a span of just a month, this family of migrants that has always been able to sustain themselves on their income and live a life of dignity in a land far from home are now completely uprooted from their life as they knew it.
Go to support the Quint tab on our homepage. Choose a plan for supporting the Quint. Support and get exclusive access to our stories.